Good morning. I am joined this morning by Jamie O'Leary, the Crane Center's Associate Director for Policy. Thanks for joining us, Jamie, and for weighing in on this important topic. Our question for you is, from your vantage point, what is standing in the way of Ohio more fully investing in early childhood?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Good question, loaded question. I have probably three points I'll make. I'll try to keep it brief. First, I think care of children is historically women's work. So much of this labor is not just underpaid, but actually unpaid completely, through informal care arrangements. It's less visible work. I think the pandemic has really brought that to light in new ways where folks have really, some folks have realized, maybe who had it before, the value of that work. When we're talking about home care settings and child care settings and drilling down even further, it's also women of color that are disproportionately in those industries. So a few weeks ago on our webinar, we had some state lawmakers on and a really great discussion about how we need more male lawmakers and more men to champion this so that it's not just seen or legislated as a women's issue. And I think that's really spot on. The second thing is, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that would argue that children don't deserve a safe, loving, quality space to learn and grow. I think the difference of opinion is around who's responsible to pay for that. Is this the family's responsibility or is it government? And here you get into these kind of sticky culture war questions about the size of government, the role of families. For folks that want our state in particular to invest more, I think you really have to think about that and take that into consideration, that a lot of the folks we're trying to convince might be coming from a very different political, philosophical framework. And those longstanding beliefs are often really hard to change, unfortunately. And that kind of brings me to my main point, which is that for us to more fully invest at a state level in early childhood or federal, but we're talking just about Ohio now, we need to view early care and education as a public good in the same way that we treat K-12 education. I think we need to really begin questioning that artificial cutoff when a kid turns 5 or 6. Now suddenly we deem it okay to fund them through the public school system. Why can't that start earlier? Why have we kind of created these artificially separate systems? And I think we need to get really creative and strategic about how we sell that public good argument. And I'll give you an example. Here in Ohio, which is a pretty red state, and at least, for the last several years has a fairly conservative legislature, I've often wondered why we haven't sold this argument in a way that's palatable for decision makers. Specifically, seeing childcare, quality care as something that strengthens families, that's something that empowers parents and families to choose what's best for their children. So often childcare is about convenience and affordability. It's not about what's best for the family or the children. And so we've seen those arguments kind of work in other policy spaces. That would be my more provocative suggestion in terms of how we think about framing that issue for Ohioans in particular.